Everybody, Texas Trucker here, Lance's Performance Shop, Lone Star Mopars.com. Getting towards the end of the year. I'm trying to frantically continue cleaning, get some stuff done. Have a ton I'm trying to get accomplished here while I've got some downtime. But what we're going to do right now, because it'll tie in with a lot of videos you're going to see not too far in the future, is take a look at this. This is the Hercules Tool Bag that I picked up quite some time ago. I just ran inside trying to find the receipt to see kind of like when in the world it was. And I'm not really sure. I know that the ratchet that we picked up and the socket set, which are currently housed in the bag, were back in May, so I'm going to assume it was in May. I don't know if it was the exact purchase, if it came before, if it was 2 weeks after. At the time, I was getting, to run errands fairly frequently. So regardless, they've basically been in service for half a year, 7 months, whatever you want to say. And I've got to say, the bag itself, I'm actually very impressed with. Again, this will tie in with a future video where we may have something similar to this. I've always been kind of a, why would you use a tool bag when you can just have a box? And I would buy the cheap plastic boxes to have, stuff for cars, like breakdown kits type of a deal. In the instance of this bag and what's inside of it, it was basically, this is me buying stuff for myself to use at work to make what I'm doing there easier. And when we get inside, you'll probably remember some of those videos. But the bag itself has actually held up really well. I shouldn't have unzipped it because this basically, it's got a ton of weight in it for what it is. And I essentially lug it with me. For a little while towards the end of the year, I got to where I was just leaving it at work. It was kind of a pain. And but for most of the time, like if I needed it, I'd run out to the car, I'd grab it from the trunk, I'd carry it in, and I'd lug it through the shop, and where I go is far away. And we're home free. So that's kind of all this has been. But like I said, I've actually liked the bag and the form factor so well. It's kind of like tipping me over from like, man, that plastic box eats up a lot of space in the trunk or the back seat of the truck, or wherever you're keeping it. So sort of developing an affinity for the bag. But the real wear factor, let's actually zip this up, would be the handles, because again, this is heavy. And if you take a look, this is where the stitch line is to the bag. It's in great condition. It's not pulling away yet. Same thing on the back side. You can see there and there. Obviously, I need both handles. I hate flipping this, but we'll slightly do it. I don't use the shoulder strap. You can tell it's a little dirty, but that's actually not that bad. If I would have had to do motors the last 3 weeks of this year, like, good Lord. We're technically closed. I was at work yesterday because that's how stuff goes. But, man, the amount of dirt in there. Again, we're by a grain elevator, the county, like road department. Tons of stuff blows in with southwest wind, and there's, landfill. Stuff comes from the north. And then it's Amarillo, so it's dusty, And I would say that's actually fairly impressive. Now, this kind of sucks because the tripod's way too short. So what I'm going to do is pop you off real quick and take a look inside the bag. So what we've got going on, again, this is nothing fancy, nothing grand, just a real world update. What I want to do is kind of give you updates on several of the items in here. Oh, okay, this is important. So this is the Harbor Freight orange hook that I actually took to work. You can see that it's dirtier than it looks, trust me. But what I do with this is literally I hold the UPS sign. Every day that we have a UPS shipment, I throw this on the freight door. It holds like a laminated sign, because if we didn't laminate it, it wouldn't last. And it's worked really well, but I finally was able to get those red ones that you've seen, I guess, now in a previous haul. Took them to work. They've been in action for, I don't know, the last week or two, before the Christmas break. So this is my original orange one, and it is coming home. So I'm glad I threw that in there. Should not have brought this or the ratchet it's attached to, but I did, I guess. Right here, my Channellock 338s. These are, I'm sorry, not, they are 338, 357s, my bad. These are just nippers, and what I do with them is I pull staples. That's all they do. Sometimes they pull nails or screws, but it's like 99% staples. I've had these now for, geez, I don't know, 3 to 5 years, and they've pulled a lot of staples. Jawline is still really good. Doesn't look it, but it is. A lot of that staining is like adhesive and stuff from labels. Handles have a lot of red on them. That's our color. It's not blood. Some of it could be, but most of it's paint. So we will set those down. We'll just go ahead and pull this out. I don't know if I ever made a tool haul on this, but this is like one of those cheap Tekton composite ratchets, right? I kept my swivel heads here. I think those were my first ever Tekton tools. I don't remember if I bought this at the same time or a latter date. This is way dirtier than it's looking like it is. It's covered in cast iron, basically, to the point where it like impregnates into the handle. Like if you have a bare hand, you feel the metal grit, and then even though it's on your hand, it doesn't come off, type of a deal. What this is, whenever I'm using this stuff, again, for motors, this is a 1/2-inch drive, if you didn't know. Again, not blood, paint, so roll with me here. But that is a 1/2-inch drive, and I have it for one particular reason. I was using it for everything for a long time, and then when I upgraded to that, powered ratchet there, I sort of retired this to one task in mind. It still works really well. The thing I love about it is like this time of year when it's cold and I have that composite handle on the ground, it's not cold. Like it's cold, but it's not ice cold, like a bare metal handle. So it's held up really well. There's a lot of chinks and dinks in it. Again, the biggest thing is like the handle gets impregnated with that like cast iron dust. The head, again, this is why I bought the long neck ratchet. You'll see like this isn't, the best example. The camera's not picking up, but there's a lot of gashes in it. And that's from tight quarters, but that's what that is. This is going to be the only Tekton impact socket that I have in this bag, because I'm supposed to have thrown this in the tray in my office before I left, but I apparently didn't. 15/16, that's going to be 5/8 bolts that hold the lift hooks. So I've had these for quite some time now too. It's kind of the same way. It's just really, really red. And so that's about all I can say there. But lifespan on those, again, we're pushing 3 to 4 years and they're holding up fine. So the 15/16 is the main socket that I'm using with that now because of the addition of this stuff. So something I would love to do is actually get rid of this charger out of here. It adds a lot of weight, but the more I've thought about it, like what I was thinking I would do is if I just bought a roll cart for work, that's kind of where this orange one I got here comes in. If I liked it, I was considering getting one for work. I wish I would have just done that at the price point. But if I do, I think I'm going to power the top end of it, and I would get a dedicated charger and just leave it there at work, because right now I'm lugging this thing back and forth. This will luckily do 12 and 20 volt. But let's go ahead and grab the long neck ratchet out of there, and we'll set him to the side because we need to cover this other stuff real quick. So we'll pull this out and talk about it in a second. This guy is getting retired. He's filthy too. If it looks brown, that's because it is. It's again the dust and the dirt and the red. What I selected to do with this guy from Witte, which that's a fantastic color scheme, is use it to start the staples. There's some times where I can't get the channel locks to bite the actual staple, and so I need like a small flat blade or something, right? I've used a knife a lot of time. Probably shouldn't be doing that either. Probably shouldn't be using this, but the reason I'm retiring this, it did a good job, but I really like this screwdriver. And it's not that I'm worried about the tip wearing, that's what the tool is for, it's that I'm bending the shaft a lot. And it sounds dumb, but I mean, this is like heavy cardboard that goes around the motors on some sizes, and I think it's still staying true to form. We could put a level on it, but it's like, I feel bad because I know the tool's kind of being pushed past its max not intended load limits, so what I'll probably do, I think I have a set of Filos that are striking cap. This size is like perfect. If you get much bigger, like striking cap sets sometimes don't be striking cap, but I would much rather use that tool than this one. I'm gonna clean this one up and retire it. Not retire it, but like not use it for what I was doing at work, but it's absolutely filthy. If we had another one here for you, you would pick up on the difference, I'm pretty sure. But it's done its job very well in terms of the tip wear. since we actually have like a real world junk from work here. Not bad. I mean, the black is still on it. This has unseated an awful lot of staples. Again, what happens many times, like let's say that this is the edge of the cardboard and the Channellocks can come and grab them and pull them out. A lot of times, like, they're sunk in, and then whenever they, like, you know, if you've ever used a staple gun that shoots the big staples, you know, a lot of times it like double fires, so it's and sometimes triple fires. And when that happens, if they're close together or stacked, it's usually like only one that'll go on top of the other. Those pliers have a really hard time pulling them, and so that's where this comes in as well. And then other times it's just like sunk so deep in the cardboard, there's nothing I can do to like manipulate the pliers to actually like sink in and catch it. So that's where the flat blade comes in. Let's see here. This guy right here I have in the bag, just the 20 volt compact impact. It's really dirty. I don't use it often. Sometimes, like if I want to spice it up, I will. I've got one of my Wiha magnetic nut setters here. That's the size that I would use most frequently. And then this guy, oh man, it's... the more flex you put in it, the less likely it is to work well. Which is kind of sad because that's what I bought it for. It does, if it's straight, it's fine, and it serves as a great extension. The problem is you didn't buy this to be an extension, you bought this to be the curved extension, right? There have been a few, and I do mean a few, maybe like 10 to 20 lag screws I've been able to rip out with this that the Ratchet was having trouble with. But proceed with caution, I guess I would say. It's worth having in your arsenal, but I don't think it's going to be like the be-all, end-all solution. You probably hope it would be when you bought it, because that's kind of where it stands with me. But this little guy, again, I use the Ratchet the most, I'm not going to lie, but I keep this in there. Coming in, again, there is our... well, there's a plug from a Pittsburgh set. I've got some drills, drill bits, I should say. This is honorable mention. This I also should have left at work. These, I'm sure everyone will recognize them. El Cheapo Pittsburgh T-Handles. Oh, where would we be without you? This is the 1/4 inch, and I drive 4 plugs in, most motors. And they ship separate in a bag. This little, I'm telling you, the reason I kind of thought these were junkers, you know, when I got them, and there's a lot better options out there, but these are actually pretty good. This has been with me for years. And again, I'm not doing anything precision. When I drive those plugs in, they're to never come out, essentially. So it's not like a deal where I'm constantly removing and installing. These basically just drive. They install a plug. I'm getting paint on my hands from just touching my stuff here. So I have to say, though, for as cheap as you can get those in a set with a stand, they're not a bad option. So if you're rolling on a budget, keep these in mind. I have used the nut setters a few times, like the little Harbor Freight ones. This was an interesting deal. This is when I was using the impact over here, and if you note, we basically are bushing that out way past 1/4. We're going to 1/2 inch drive. Not sure I would recommend that, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. There should be one of these pockets with nut setters, and I never seem to know which one it is. I have the shoulder strap in here still. What is this? More adapters? No, that's what I just had. Okay, right here in the pocket it looked flat. So I'm not, yeah, that one's seen some use. So the problem with these, as with anything magnetic, they get like tons of debris in them. But a couple of times I have, again, plugged them in here and used that versus the Ratchet. So let's just shift the bag back a little. And I guess we will start with this guy. So again, it's not in pristine condition to be showcased, but that's why we do unboxings and initial impressions. This is my Hercules 3/8 drive 12 volt extended reach ratchet. This was selected because I needed the extended reach. You can tell from the head and all the gashes on this ratchet that the extended reach was important to me. It has been fantastic. I'll tell you right now, if you're thinking like, oh yeah, I bet you can't shoot lag screws out of that. Sometimes I can. Many times I cannot, and what I do is I just treat this as a manual ratchet. I come in, I catch, ratchet once, ratchet twice. 99% of the time when it's seized to that point and I ratchet twice with this, whatever cycles that may be, I'm able to pull the trigger and spin the fastener out. It saves me a ton of time versus doing everything manually with this and opened end wrenches, which is what I was having to do for the bolts under junction boxes. The back side, it's fine. That's where this thing really shines. This does those great as well, but the junction box, including the fasteners, I talk about it all the time. That's literally why I purchased this thing. It's held up fantastic. Obviously, when this is not in use, I do not leave it out. I have it in the bag so dust and debris doesn't drop in. The batteries hold up very well. This actually has, whoops, that's a bad placement. This has one of the sockets on it, so that would explain why it was missing from the rail. But it's kind of the exact same size as I use over and over again. So right there, again, not blood, it's mainly paint. It's just what happens. It like falls through the wells of the socket, gets on the anvil. But I have zero complaints with this thing. Is it the most powerful? Is it the fastest? Probably not. But it's been really, really good to me, and it's aided me quite a bit in what I do. So that's kind of partial throttle there. I can't really fit my hand in the frame, but we'll just go full bore here. It's been good. I mean, like I said, I had it for solely that purpose. And if it does anything else for me, it's just bonus. But again, I'm busting this out, updating you on it, kind of like a 6-month real world update. So you can sort of keep that in mind as we check out some other things. So speaking of other things, very proud of this little guy. So I have been in a big time organization mode here the last couple of, I don't know, probably like a month, 6 weeks now. And we're doing some things. You'll see those videos in the future. Some of them may be already out, I don't know. But essentially half, 9/16, and 3/4. This is the Pittsburgh socket set, the cheapest one you can get for impact sets basically anywhere readily available. I have zero complaints with it. I've used these in the past at work in 1/2-inch drive. They've been fine. We break their swivels all the time, but standard impacts, they wear pretty well, right? So typically we have proto, just really, really old proto is still functioning, and every once in a while, you know, it's like, man, you know, where did the 3/4 go, you know, and I'll pick up cheap stuff. And it goes till it goes or it walks away type of a deal, right? So in terms of the sockets themselves, zero real complaints. Again, it's very easy to tell what is used and what is not used. These 3 sizes, not used, right? This guy that's basically like worn down to almost look chrome, used. That one that's got a lot of wear and red paint, used. Skip these 2, 3/4, used. So, right here again, the markings. Would it be cool if they were like high visibility? Yes. Would it be cool if they were like stamped in a lower spot? Yeah. But I kind of know 1/2, 9/16, 3/4. So it works. 9/16 is actually probably used the most. That's this guy right here again, red all over everything. But it's been good to me. So, I mean, zero complaints thus far. The thing with these, they are not critical, right? These are pulling lag screws. I'm not going to glorify it. That's what these 2 sizes are doing. One plant, actually most plants use 3/8. Some use 5/16. So that's your variance there. I think the halves I use on something else too. It's not quite coming to my mind. And then the 3/4, when we have, you know, the 1/2-inch bolts, which I'll have to drive in sometimes. Sometimes you get hex plugs, sometimes you get bolts. It's kind of a crapshoot. And then your other lift hook, of course, one lift hook is attached, usually. And then the other lift hook, assuming it doesn't fall off the pallet and get left on a truck, that's where the 15/16 comes in, right? So you got 5/8 bolts holding the lift hook, because it's kind of important that you don't drop that on yourself. So I would not say, like, for a 6 months review of 3 sizes, and again, you know, if you're going to have issues with one of these sockets, you could project it to the others. Since they've all 3 held up, that's about half the set. I would say the set should hold up for you across 6 months. Keep in mind, this is not chronic use every day either. And I will also add, in the situation that I'm currently using these in for their exclusive nature of work, which is honestly quite a bit, I would not fully endorse these till we've had way more time with them. You know, the 6 months is not not enough. Based on past experience, I can say we should be fine. But ideally, I'd say 2 years or so. I mean, I'm not one to jump the gun. I don't want to like have bought these, you know, and be like, oh, these are the greatest scissors ever. You don't know that until you use them. And then if you use them and they're the greatest scissors ever, that's great. But the truly greatest scissors ever, you would have to use a long time, and they would have to maintain, you know, very close to their initial performance for me to say, hey, these are great. Are these a good value? Absolutely, I'll say that. What I'm honestly the most impressed with here is the Ernst socket rail. So that's what this is. This is the Ernst one, and it's what I brought in sort of kind of test these out. And the reason this is impressive is because this doesn't stay in a box, okay? This doesn't get put in a roll cart, you know, and like come out. It goes in the bag, and it gets beat on by the ratchet and the impact and all the other hand tools and random crud in there and the charger, and the sockets stay on. Every once in a while I think the 1/2 inch comes off, but in all honesty I usually also leave one on here. So in terms of the rail itself, everything is in place. The ones we didn't use, they haven't even moved. And why that's impressive is this has been truly mobile. Like when it's not being drug along the shop with me, it gets brought out. Like I don't leave this in the bag, you know, when I'm doing this. I know like, hey, I'm gonna have to switch sizes. So what I do is I pull it out, right? I don't like leave that little staple driver that I pull staples with, or these like in a bag. I pull them out and I have them set out on crates or boxes or whatever. And if they fall over, they fall over. If they get knocked down, they get knocked down. And then at the end of the day, they get thrown back in the bag and lugged around and then thrown in a trunk and driven and, you know, sliding around, and they stay in place. And it's cheap. So very, very cool there. Super content with that purchase. The one complaint, what would I have about the, you know, Pittsburgh 3/8 socket set? I wish it went bigger. I wish that, you know, I had 15/16. Would I typically use 1/2 inch drive for 15/16? Yeah, I sure would, but I have a 3/8 drive ratchet. So there you go. Now I will say, like, driving these in, it's not a critical torque. Pulling lag screws is not critical. I have, if anyone's curious, I have broken a few. Sometimes, like, I get frustrated, you know, and I can't, like, turn the ratchet. In terms of slim profile, the biggest issue is that switch. When you have something really, really, really occluded where this doesn't work for you, I run into that sometimes, and it gets difficult to switch directions, you know, or like even manually pull it without like taking the finish off of the junction box. So in some instances, I've actually used this to break the lag screw. Like instead of loosening it, I tighten it, or I just like, you know, spin it by hand, and it'll take the abuse. So I didn't buy this to pamper it, I bought it to use it. So it certainly passed its test. The 15/16 though would be killer, because then I could use this to like spin them in, and then I always hand tighten those. I like doing things by hand anyway. It's just personal preference. But in terms of like lag screws, I'm never going to use them. Sometimes, very, very, very rarely. I keep them just in case. But for the most part, those are like done. They were used to secure something in shipping to me, and they're done. And I don't care to maintain them. I don't care if they get rounded out. Obviously, you know, like if you see, in addition to the red paint, there's like shrapnel, right? That's grade 2 carriage bolt. Sometimes, you know, the socket doesn't clear and I can sort of catch a landing, and I'm like, well, let's just turn it a little. And I'll eventually like round it enough that I can drop it down and still have enough sides to spin free. So, it is what it is, right? So again, if they were important fasteners I intended to reuse, total different ball game. But for grade 2 carriage bolts, lag screws, no, not a concern for me. So that's kind of that. Again, this has been good. I've used it for lots of other things, mainly drilling. That's what those bits are, in fact. This poor little guy, I took it because it matched everything really well, and it was a really nice tip, I thought. The problem, again, is like the tip is doing fine, the driver itself is fine, but I mean, I get some serious deflection with this thing. And I don't want to break it, is basically what that comes down to. It's done its job, it's been great, it looks good, it feels good in hand, but I can tell I'm getting to a point where I could potentially break that. I don't want to do it. I like it too much. It's of more use to me intact. We're going to swap it out. Again, I hope I have a little philo or something with a stripe. I think maybe like the red and black set I was able to buy really cheap. That'll get swapped. I keep this around just because every once in a while it's handy. There was like one time where it did, you know, was it 50s or something, came in really weird, like someone new was on the shift or something, and this was a godsend. But the rest of the time it's sort of like, wow, that has so much potential if it would just work like you want it to. So it's worth having, but I wouldn't expect miracles all the time. Maybe 1 in 5 times, right? These, great bang for the buck. The Ernst socket rail, really impressed by that thing. Again, I didn't have those two, you know, twisted because we've been looking at them. But this is real world life cycles, and this is from Texas, right? So even though it's freezing right now with like a 50-mile-an-hour wind, in the summertime it's like 100 degrees, right? And I'm in a black car, so I mean, it held up to the heat, held up to transit, all kinds of stuff. Only good to say. Again, these guys have been with me many years now, and zero issues with them. So that's about that. I'll have to make sure I get these back, the little Tekton stuff, to work. And call that good. Again, most of it not blood, most of it paint, so keep that in mind. But the bag itself, great. Zero complaints really with the Ratchet. Would it be better if it was a slimmer head? Yeah, but I mean, you can't really ask for much more. Batteries, zero issues with them thus far. The bag itself, again, you can kind of get a look at it. It's just a little dirty in the bottom, like cardboard, stuff like that. Wood chips, you know, just debris field, general stuff. What is this? This is something I think I was bringing back. Yeah, this was really weird. It's rare. Sometimes I get a vertical one, and got these little carriage bolts and stuff, so I can't remember. I think these were SAE, but yeah, that was unique hardware, so I figured I'd salvage it as well. But the biggest thing there is I would love to have this out and in a cart, but I don't know that I hit on this. My logic for keeping it here is, since I haul this with me and into work and then back with me, if I have to go to my sister's house, you know, and like hang a picture or whatever, and I need a drill, how bad does it suck if you get there and you've got your stuff and you've got your bits and your tools, and then boom, the battery dies. So there is practical reason for it. The knee pads were around this time. They're okay, but honestly, I just use the foam pads. I like the foam pad better. If I'm doing something really nasty, like painting or something, and I don't want to like stain the foam pad, I'll just use thick cardboard. I do have the knee pads that are in the trunk of the Challenger, but I took them out of this bag. It was just cumbersome. Every time I'm back there, I usually carry the foam pad with me, and I would always then have to pull the knee pads out and dig around and find what I'm looking for, so I said no. But yeah, just an update on some miscellaneous stuff for you, really. So the fan, I don't know that I ever got around to making a video on that. It works, it's functional. I rarely use it with the battery. Why? Because it's dual power, so I have an extension cord. I keep it work. Blue and yellow, really cool. And don't see those often, but it makes some spindle noise ever since it was new, but so far it hadn't died, so I'd assume it's kind of like a little off balance or something. But anyway, yeah, random little update video for you, and I do this with a purpose because you just might be seeing some additional products that tie in with some of these. So I will leave it at that. Hopefully you enjoy it. Again, if you like seeing the real world stuff, let me know. I can make it happen. I'd say like roughly 6 to 8 months on this stuff, you know, doing what I intended for it to do. So no complaints thus far, really. So LoneStarMopars.com is the website. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, all three at Lone Star Mopars. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have yourself a fantastic week, and I'll catch you back here for more action from the shop.